I'm out of torpor to cause problems like a bat. It always has to go too far one way or the other for some goddamn reason. What I'm mumbling about is any further discourse about asexuals that I've seen on my timeline unwillingly in the past month or so. What I got out of the asexual discourse this time around is that I don't think most of you know what Puritanism even is. So I think we need to go over what Puritanism is and explain why asexuality is not Puritanism, but also it is the antithesis of Puritanism. So first and foremost, what is Puritanism? Where did it come from? Puritanism is a moral thought or a sect of the Church of England that split in the 16th century. Basically, a bunch of people thought that the Church of England was way too close to Roman Catholicism and they wanted a reform. They wanted, to discontinue practices not actually in the Bible. The church and the government, which was the monarchy, wasn't too fond of that. So the Puritans migrated to New England in the 17th century and, set up shop there, made, their religious freedom everybody else's problem. Very interesting that Puritans wanted to escape religious persecution and yet persecuted everybody that wasn't their religion. They believed that, the Bible should be central to all morals, laws, actions, not, the church, not the government, but the Bible. And then they believed that the government should enforce the Bible. They really committed to the bit being hypocrisy. What are the Puritan beliefs? I'm going to put this just in the simplest, most summarized way possible for you. 1, God punishes evil and rewards good. 2, whether or not you go to hell or heaven was predetermined the day you were born, and there's nothing you can do about it. 3, humans are inherently evil, and the only way to sort of be good is to, be devoted to God, hard work, and discipline. 4, they believed that God protects and cares for the elect that are going to heaven. And 5, that human beings are unworthy of God's grace, yet God still affords grace to those that he deems the elect that will be going to heaven. So what I mean by the elect, as stated before, Puritans believe that the day you're born, you're already predetermined whether you're going to hell or heaven, and there's nothing you can do about it. And the Puritans believed they were the elect going to heaven, and only the elect were allowed in the church, and they did a bunch of crazy shit to try and prove that they were the elect. Like, for instance, they believed that guilt and remorse was a sign of God's grace. A grand bulk of Puritan thought surrounds anxiety, guilt, remorse, the idea that you should feel bad and work hard and be disciplined to make sure that you deserve to go to heaven or whatever. You must work and suffer to be a good person and rewarded, and that this is a good thing, apparently. So basically, just the same as the dominating North American moral thought as of the 21st century. In fact, Puritans as, a religious sect doesn't really exist anymore. They didn't even call themselves Puritans. The moral thought of Puritanism still remains like a leech to, general United States thought today. You can apply a lot of this shit to like hustle culture and that sort of shenanigans. A lot of that moral thought is still held today by Americans that don't even know what Puritanism is. So like the effect of Puritanism by those, group of colonizers in the 17th century has a very long-lasting effect even after that religious sect has died out. And I'm sure other parts of the world, given the United States' influence, have been affected as well. So what did the Puritans actually think about sex? There is this idea, and the way you guys throw around this word makes me think that y'all think Puritans hated sex. That is partially not true. They believed God created sex, and therefore it must not be evil. Now, mind you, the Puritans hated all sex that was not approved by the church, whether that be, masturbation, homosexuality, adultery, sex outside of marriage, things of that like. However, they encouraged sex between married heterosexual couples to the point where you could be charged by law in court if you are not having sex with your partner. I'm not making that up. Puritans thought it was the moral duty of a, heterosexual married couple to have sex not only for the purpose of procreation, but also to provide a fulfilling relationship. Puritans thought sex between heterosexual married couple is good, encouraged, and illegal not to do, but any other sex, bad, illegal. They didn't hate sex, they just hated sex that they didn't approve of. Now let's look at women in Puritanism. Like most things back then with Western culture, women were property, women could own things, women only existed as an extension of her husband. This goes beyond Puritanism. That is the dominant culture throughout United States history up until very recently. Is also the dominant culture in a lot of cultures and religions for a very long time. A Puritan woman's role was to obey her husband, especially as they believed that, Eve in the original sin myth was an example of women being morally weaker and, needing of that moral guidance. Women and children were essentially property of the man of the house, which, once again, not a new concept or exclusive to Puritanism. With all this established, it was essentially the woman's job to engage in sex with her husband whenever he wanted, or else she risked religious and legal persecution. The men of Puritanism essentially had marital sex slaves as women were property. And it wasn't helped by the fact that, the church encouraged and would legally punish certain couples for not engaging in, sexual intercourse in marriage. Puritanism is also a facet of rape culture in that it encourages marital rape. All in all, what am I getting at here? Puritanism has moral standards outside of sex that still haunt the United States today, just in its dominant culture. Puritanism hates all sex that is not sanctioned by the church. Puritanism also hates when sex that is sanctioned by the church is not taking place. Between a married heterosexual couple where the woman can't legally say no to her husband. Being asexual is not Puritanism. Making the personal choice to abstain from sex is not Puritanism. In fact, you would be whipped in the town square if either of these things were true, if Puritans had anything to say about it. Being asexual, or more accurately, wanting to abstain from sex, is against that sexual servitude that women had to comply to under Puritanism, and therefore is just as radical as somebody engaging in non-church sanctioned acts of sex like masturbation or sex outside of marriage or homosexuality. Please leave asexuals alone.